is Daniel Suarez.
Thank you, Alexander. Good evening, everybody. Now, some of you might be wondering what qualifies a novelist to speak on the topic of bot-mediated reality. So I'd like to address that first off. Who the hell is Daniel Suarez? Well, I'm a software guy. For the last 17 years, I've been designing and developing database management systems for large companies.
I like your picture.
Now, I've been doing this in many industries: defense, finance, logistics, entertainment, and for the last 7 years with my own company. Now, over the course of my career, I've noticed society's collective pursuit of hyper-efficiency. And this has been a great concern of mine, because it's been a pursuit of efficiency at the expense of almost everything else. Now, efficiency manifests itself in several ways. First of all, centralization. That's companies merging, becoming ever larger, achieving economies of scale, and fewer people making decisions that affect larger numbers of people. And that begets a monoculture. That's vast, uniform networks, not just digital, but agricultural, industrial, financial, media. And part of this is also an elimination of redundancy, that is, trimming fat. Now, in nature, there's a use for fat. It's to deal with disruptions. And big business tries to minimize the amount of fat. And part of it also is a drive for ubiquitous connectivity, that is, unifying all of these vast networks to achieve centralized data management and analysis. And it's all of these things in the pursuit of efficiency that make it possible to achieve widespread automation. And by that I mean software automation, or bots. And that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Because bots are increasingly what we rely on to make decisions for us. As a matter of fact, we're increasingly taking our instructions directly from bots. Sometimes just on faith. It takes a while. I think this is in the Olympic Village, I'm not sure. Now, my book, Demon, for those of you who aren't familiar with the scenario of that book, this story is one of a game designer who designs an array of bots that scan the internet for the appearance of his obituary. And when it appears on his death, these bots launch into action and begin to dismantle civilization as we know it. Now, as far-fetched as that sounds, it didn't escape my notice that IT security experts didn't immediately dismiss this scenario. And that should tell you something about the state of our culture's infrastructure. Because I don't think it would take a singularity or a greater than human machine intelligence to trap the human race. I think it could be done with much simpler systems. Because one of the things about narrow AI, which is what bots are, is that they are great at allowing a very small number of people to run the underpinnings of society, while the great mass of people make few or no decisions of consequence, which is one of my big concerns. In fact, I think soon, if not already, it might be possible for our society to run completely on autopilot, nobody at the wheel. So you may think, wow, Dan, that sounds pretty unlikely. But I'll go over a couple of ways that might happen. Because to me, that's the fundamental question of our time. Whether technology, sorry, I'm bellowing here, whether technology will liberate us or enslave us. And I think we need to get busy answering that question, and soon. Because bots are not going away. They're going to be with us as long as civilization is here. So we need to get this decision, this done right. So before I continue, let me clarify some terms. When I say a bot, Most of you already know that it stands for robot, and I don't mean this. And I don't mean this. And under no circumstances do I mean this. Fabulous dance from the 80s. What I'm talking about is this. It's a software bot. It's a software application designed to accomplish a specific purpose. Now, this is the source code for an e-commerce bot that scrapes pricing information out of websites and accumulates it into a database, probably to be picked up by still other bots. So a bot does one or all of these three things. It searches for information, retrieves information, and acts upon information. And although these seem very harmless, these are really the building blocks for the whole biological world. Because cells retrieve chemicals and enzymes, pull them into the cell to act as catalysts, to create all of the activity in a multicellular organism. So these are really, as I said, the building blocks for the natural world. So together they're very powerful. And knowingly or not, we've replicated this in the digital world. Now, if you look at the last item, act upon, that's the key one, because that might get us headed back in this direction at some point. But fortunately, not even Danny Hillis or Alexander Rose can build one of these yet. So that leaves us with digital bots for now. And digital bots are powered, of course, by AI. And artificial intelligence basically breaks down into two main branches. And I'm going to buzz through this because I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But there's artificial general intelligence. Now, that's strong AI. Now, and that differs from narrow AI in that this doesn't exist yet. But there's questions about when it might arrive. Now, a lot of the theories, like Vernor Vinge's singularity theory, pontificate whether all of our networks might combine and soon create some greater than human machine intelligence. Likewise, Ray Kurzweil talks about his the belief that by the end of this century, machine and human intelligence will merge into one. And then, of course, there's Kevin Kelly and his one machine concept, that all of the processors on the world are starting to equate to neurons in the human brain. But the key thing about this is that it's been 30 years away for about 50 years already. So the only people making any money on it are science fiction authors and Hollywood, which leaves us with weak or narrow AI. And these don't even try to approximate even animal intelligence. They do one thing very efficiently, and they're everywhere. They're all throughout society. As a matter of fact, they power the modern world. And that's because the modern world consists largely of data. We create mountains of data. And there aren't enough people to go through it all. And bots are supremely efficient at pouring through mountains of data that the modern world creates. And that's what gives them so much power over us as people. Finance, telecom, security, manufacturing, all creating this data. It's worth noting that bots determine whether you get a mortgage. They set your FICO score. As a matter of fact, bots might determine whether you get a job interview because resume scanners look for keywords. But bots also affect us on a much more personal level even than that. Radiology, MRI, these films are examined, pre-screened by bots for follow-up by doctors if an anomaly is detected. So instead of hiring 100 doctors, you can hire 10. It's hard to imagine a more direct impact on your life. As a matter of fact, you better hope they've written these bots well. But of course, bots are also scanning through all of your medical records to see whether you need to have your medical insurance canceled. So they're mining all of this data, but they're also listening to us as well and speaking to us. If you've called an airline or a credit card company recently, you've probably spoken to a bot. And actually, within the confines of a given business transaction, bots can understand and speak reasonably well with humans. As a matter of fact, typical synthetic speech voice based entirely on text.
Synthetic voices seem rather fanciful.
Now, I have one with a Kentucky accent, but that seemed out of sorts for here. But these voices allow a cost reduction of up to 90% in call centers. And that's the key, once again, is that bots are more efficient than humans. But of course, bots are also listening to us in other ways. Bots are largely responsible for the removal of the limitations on wiretapping, because bots can be put onto a line to listen for key terms and once again notify a human being for follow-up. So that's a key thing. They've removed any limitations on wiretapping. But bots are, of course, also watching us. The ballooning number of surveillance cameras out in society is made possible largely by software, because there aren't enough orcs in Mordor to watch all of these computer monitors.